The weather is really bad, and it's raining heavily. Our protagonist works in a bookstore and is thinking to himself that he might not get any customers today because of the weather, but what if somebody forgot an umbrella? They might have to find a place to stay while the rain goes away, our protagonist thinks, and by offering them a warm place and being nice to them, they will probably buy some books as well. Now, we can see a mysterious woman out on the streets in the heavy rain, single-handedly fighting and finishing off multiple thugs. Even though she managed to beat all of them, she still got injured and is thinking she needs a place to hide while her self-healing takes care of her wounds. She then stumbles upon the bookstore of our protagonist. Because this was the only bookstore working in this bad weather, she wasn't sure if it was a trap for her, or maybe destiny, that she could go in and hide while waiting to heal. After entering the bookstore, our protagonist welcomes her kindly, complimenting her looks and bravery because she was woken out in this awful weather. He is plotting in his mind what kind of books she might need and what approach he needs to have to sell her a lot of books. He also offered her a towel and turned on the heating, which was all suspicious to her because usually bookstores aren't as equipped as this one is. She starts to wonder if he belongs to some enemy faction because he definitely didn't have regular book clerk vibes. He starts talking about books, which confuses her a little bit since she can't figure out whether he is actually friendly or an enemy in disguise. She can read his body language, and she realizes he is using psychological tricks on her, but she still doesn't understand why exactly. He offers her a seat and a hot beverage, and she tells him she was a victim of a betrayal. Now two of them are having different thoughts. She is still trying to figure out if he is the enemy, and he is trying to understand her situation so he can sell her books. After she mentioned she was betrayed, he wanted to encourage her by saying that maybe she should take some positive from it and learn how to understand people better. She said he is right but that she already lost so much and can only see the ugly side of humanity now. So he gives her another piece of advice again, saying that in the future she shouldn't feel remorse for people who harmed her already, even if they were really close to her before. This makes her even more suspicious of him, but she goes along with him, asking what else she should do, and he tells her to exact vengeance. She shouldn't be soft on people who hurt her. In his mind he is still thinking about the strategies of what to say to her to prepare for buying books from him, but she got surprised by this answer, saying that she isn't mentally prepared to do evil things like that yet, and all of a sudden he tells her maybe you need to buy this book to learn more. She gets even more surprised again and even confused now, because she doesn't understand why he is recommending her a book all of a sudden, while he is just trying to sell her book because that's good for his business. She agrees to buy the book, and he gives her a library card to fill out, and after seeing her name, he realizes she is the only daughter of a rich tycoon and sees another great business opportunity to sell her even more books in the future. As she was leaving, he gave her an umbrella, and she told him that maybe they could get to know each other a little bit more. Then he realized that his business strategy might have been perceived as flirting by her, but it's better to go with the flow, so he tells her his name, Lin Ji. As they are saying goodbyes, she is still suspicious of him, while he is just happy that he managed to sell a book today and do good business. As she is walking in the rainy street, she is thinking that maybe he gave her an order to finish off the trader and afterwards come back to him to return the umbrella, but to actually come back after doing this deed. But all of a sudden, a mysterious figure of a man pops up behind her, but before we get to learn more about him, we learn more about our protagonist, Lin Ji's past. While he was sorting books, he found an old book written by himself, which woke up some memories in him of his past, and he remembered his old life when he was an ordinary man who liked reading books so much that girls that used to work with him didn't understand him at all. After getting back to his home, we can see a magical ring in his room, and this ring was conjured by Lin himself. He strikes it down with his fist, saying his wish. Please, let me own all the books in the world. Nothing happened. Or so it seemed. He didn't realize it, but behind him a demon appeared, who created a portal door to another dimension. And Lin immediately knew that if he goes through the door, he will own every book in the world but will not be able to go back to Earth ever again. Without any hesitation, he went through the door and was living as a book clerk for the last 3 years, ever since then, in a different world. But he didn't mind at all. He actually liked it very much because he could read an endless supply of books, and he even helped his customers with their life situations by giving them proper books. Remember the lady that just bought a book from him and realized, besides her, he didn't have customers in a long time? Now we go back to her and the mystery man on the street. She was walking right past him but realized that something was off since she couldn't move her hand at all. At that moment, the mysterious man turned around and said, "Oh, I see, it's that book." The blood in her veins froze as she realized something about that man. The rain was still falling heavily. And now we go back to Lin Ji sitting in his library with a new visitor, who was the mysterious man from a moment ago. But our protagonist already knew this man. His name was Old Wild, and he was there to return a book he previously borrowed. Two of them started talking about a book that Old Wild borrowed, and Lin Ji said the book was written by a great author who passed away. The girl was spying this from the outside, and she realized that Old Wild is actually a high-level black mage, ranked destructive. There were 4 ranks: abnormal, panicky, destructive, and indestructible. Old Wild's real name was Frank Wild, and he was famous for the mask he wears and being half a serpent-blooded mage. He fought against one of the 10 holy knights of the order and destroyed an area of 10 kilometers wide, hence the title destructive. In this city, there aren't even 10 destructive mages, and on the entire world, less than 100. As the girl walked away, she was thinking about how Lin can just casually talk with someone of that power as well. Now we go back into the bookshop, where Lin is thinking to himself that Old Wild is his regular customer, and he needs to be treated accordingly. Old Wild was a loner. Even though he had 2 kids, they didn't treat him well. His wife left him, and his colleagues were scared of him because of the way that he looks. Lin remembered when he met Old Wild for the first time 2 years ago. When Old Wild first entered the shop, he intrigued our protagonist both with his looks and his demeanor, and he was also carrying a mysterious book of high value with him. Lin offered him tea, which Wild refused because he looked scary and didn't want to take his robes, but Lin said he doesn't focus on the looks but on the heart, and Old Wild actually took off his robes, showing his scary looks. However, Lin found him more weird and scary because of the mask that he wore. Lin turned on his business and brain and tried to figure out the best approach to making Wild his regular customer. So firstly, he asks him about the book that the old man brought, because it was a book about magical and dying languages. Wild was surprised because Lin could feel the magic from the book, which even other destructive mutants couldn't feel. So as our girl from the beginning of the story, Old Wild got suspicious of Lin and decided to proceed with caution. They started talking about the book, and Wild pretended as if he doesn't know much about it but said he is studying those languages. Then he asked Lin to teach him more about it. This was a huge business opportunity for our protagonist, and he offered Wild a new book to read. This book was about the most complex dialect in China. The book's name was Devil's Language, and Old Wild immediately realized that and got extremely excited about it. Lin was happy that he could interest him in the book, and Wild asked how he managed to obtain such a rare book. Lin couldn't tell the truth about the book being from his original world, so he had to lie and say it's from a splendid civilization. Lin got a bit sad that he can't go back to Earth again. However, Wild noticed nostalgia in Lin's voice when he was describing this ancient and splendid civilization, and Wild thought that if Lin is from this civilization, he's probably a terrifying individual. After they introduced themselves back to present, Wild said thanks to the Devil's Language book, he started doing new research and he needs a new book on the topic. Lin was completely oblivious to Wild's intentions, but his business instinct kicked in again, and he wanted to offer him a new book to read. Now we go 40 years in the past, and we can see snowy mountaintops in Old Wild when he was younger. He has reached the highest of the mountain peaks to speak with the imprisoned king of ancient mage knowledge. The Mage King said a word, looked at the crow that was flying by, and it just hit the ground, losing its life like that. Old Wild was absolutely surprised at how powerful mage spells are. The Mage King then explained to Old Wild that mages control the power of words and languages. White mages write spells and black mages recite incantations. He then gave Old Wild the most valuable lesson and said that if Old Wild could realize and find the sound of his soul and create his own language, he would reach indescribable power. Now we go back to the present and a dialogue between Old Wild and our protagonist, Mr. Lin. Old Wild is saying he wants to borrow a book that will help him understand another book he has that's really difficult to understand and is a part of a single language. Our protagonist, Mr. Lin, asks Old Wild to wait for a moment while he thinks about what kind of book would help him the best. While Old Wild is waiting, he thinks about Mr. Lin always being nice to him and always there to help him out when needed. Even after Old Wild lost terribly after fighting with a guy called Joseph who was a divine knight, Mr. Lin was there for Old Wild to help guide him to the right path. Old Wild also thought that Mr. Lin is a learned hermit beyond indescribable power because he could hide his power easily from Old Wild. And he thinks that after 2 years of studying that mysterious book that's so hard to understand, Old Wild can finally understand some parts of it, and it's all thanks to Mr. Lin, whom Old Wild thought of as an omniscient and wise scholar. Old Wild wanted to show his gratitude to Mr. Lin this time. Just then Mr. Lin comes back with another book, saying that it's a bold statement, thinking this book will help Old Wild. But Mr. Lin says he considers himself quite confident in this field, which is why he gave out the vibes to Old Wild that he is a powerful scholar. After seeing what kind of a book it is, Old Wild got completely and utterly shocked, asking Mr. Lin if he really wrote this book his own, which Lin confirmed with confidence. Old Wild was still shocked. He remembered the 3 mainstream religions that were known to him, but he had never heard about the religion of the cult of ghouls before. Old Wild felt an evil aura coming from the book, so he thought to himself that Mr. Lin has to be wicked if he wrote this book, and then he wondered whether Mr. Lin was trying to start his own religion. Old Wild asked Mr. Lin if this book was his field of study about the rituals, which Mr. Lin confirmed and said that he used to study it a very long time ago and that it was a destiny-changing book for him. Mr. Lin was implying that thanks to the study of this field, he could leave Earth and come work in an underground world as a librarian with possession of all the books, but of course Old Wild didn't know this, which is why his suspicions about Mr. Lin seemed to be confirmed. Mr. Lin then tells Old Wild that he didn't publish the book and that this is the only copy of the book, and then he thinks to himself that if he stayed on Earth and published it, he could have earned the title of an associate professor on Earth. Then Mr. Lin looked at Old Wild again and said since they are acquaintances, he will lend him this book even though this is the only copy of it in the world, but if Old Wild wishes, he could take another book instead. Old Wild was thinking that he has to take this book since it's the only copy ever and it's written by this master, but Old Wild wonders what powerful Master Lin wants from him. So Old Wild says that it would be his honor to take the book. He then says that he feels a bit uneasy to receive such a valuable book from Mr. Lin, thinking to himself that maybe Mr. Lin wants to use Old Wild as his test subject. Mr. Lin thought that he needs to utilize more of his business book selling techniques, then taps Old Wild on the shoulder and says, "Don't worry, Old Wild, I'm sure you will add more value to my book. Only when someone sees my work is my research worth it. As for this book, it's not important for me now. I have entire forests already." Again, Mr. Lin was implying that he doesn't need that one book because he just used it to get to his current position where he has a forest of books, meaning all the books in the world. Then he says he still possesses all the knowledge from the book, and he could reprint it any time. That's why it's not a problem if Old Wild borrows it. Then he thinks to himself again that Old Wild should borrow the book since he's a lone scholar, and if he published the book, he would receive wealth and fame, which would heal his soul, and borrowing books from his customers and healing their souls was always Mr. Lin's top priority. Old Wild was again left in complete awe and shock, and he thought to himself that Lin is maybe teaching him that fame and wealth are useless, but Mr. Lin then says, "Feel free to recommend it to others." Old Wild agrees and thinks to himself that maybe this is the price he needs to pay to spread the knowledge about the book, to distribute the book while keeping Lin as the author of the book a secret, and that was precisely Mr. Lin's plan to heal Old Wild's soul, to make him publish it and become famous and wealthy for it. Old Wild thanks Mr. Lin for his guidance over the years, then starts conjuring something, saying that this is the token of his gratitude. It was the gargoyle that Old Wild received from his teacher after graduating. Gargoyle's power is that it can identify murderous intent by itself, and it has great magic resistance. Mr. Lin thinks Old Wild is thinking that this token of gratitude is really valuable and that it took a lot of craftsmanship to make it because it looks as if it is alive. They both thank each other, and Old Wild thinks to himself that one book from Mr. Lin could buy thousands of these gargoyles and that it's not that special. As Old Wild is leaving and saying goodbyes to Mr. Lin, he also says that he will give him a better gift next time, one that is worthy of an indescribable power. Mr. Lin says he can't wait while saying goodbye to Old Wild. After Old Wild left, Mr. Lin was thinking to himself, what kind of gift could he give me? Maybe another one of these gargoyles. As Mr. Lin stretches, saying that that's all the work for today, he notices a black goo rising on his table. The goo spells out letters, "Long time no see," and Mr. Lin screams in shock, "That's you?" Mr. Lin realized that this is the demon that sent Mr. Lin to this underground realm and tells him that it has been 3 years since they last talked and asks if it's time for Mr. Lin to pay the price for the favor that the demon has provided him. Mr. Lin thinks that this demon is actually quite friendly, since it has already helped him and fulfilled his biggest wish. Thus, Mr. Lin is not expecting the demon to ask for a big price. Then the demon sends a message saying that the price has already been paid, which is actually the reason why the demon has awoken. Mr. Lin was surprised and started thinking, what did he do that made him pay the price already? Maybe because he let Old Wild recommend the book to someone? The demon responds by writing letters, yes, out of the black goo on the table. Mr. Lin asks the demon if the price he just paid somehow benefits the demon, and the demon responded with, yes, again. Mr. Lin, relieved, says that there will be no issues then since the price has already been paid, but Mr. Lin is suspicious because it was too easy. Now we see the man named Jack on a building balcony, while the rain is still falling heavily. Jack is a mysterious man for now, but is a part of some special force unit. He receives a message over his radio that they have found the whereabouts of Old Wild and that Old Wild just spent an hour in that bookstore. Jack gets suspicious and thinks to himself that this bookstore is maybe a hidden gathering spot for the black mages. The woman on the other side of the radio gets surprised, says she has to report to Joseph, and calls Jack back to provide more info. And yes, Joseph is the guy Old Wild mentioned earlier in the story that he suffered a terrible loss to. Jack confirms the order and says he will return, but at that moment we can see Old Wild himself behind Jack, saying, "There's a rat," and attacking him. Jack pulls out a knife to stab Old Wild, but before he does it, Old Wild grabs his face, utters a magic word, and Jack loses his life in the blink of an eye. Woman on the radio calls for Jack, but Old Wild stomps on the radio, destroying it and saying that they should never spy on his place of residence, thinking about Mr. Lin of course, and saying that the punishment Jack has just received was too merciful for this transgression. Now we go back to headquarters Jack was supposed to report to, and we see that woman knocking on the door of a special knight, saying she has something to report to. We see the knight chilling in his chair, telling the woman whose name is Claudia to come in. The knight asks if something happened to the spawn of the magic mirror and says that those hunters are so annoying, get so pissed, and while punching the table, says he'll use the tombstones of their mothers as punching bags. Claudia, a little bit scared, says she has a new case for this knight. Knight asks what's more important than what Old Wild is doing, and she reports on Jack's just losing his life a couple of moments ago and said that he just discovered where Wild was before getting assassinated. The knight gets utterly furious, asking who did this, and then Claudia says it was Old Wild's doing. They thought he lost his life after the Battle of White Hills 2 years ago, but apparently he survived. The knight says he knew Old Wild survived and that nobody knows Old Wild better than him, and says that the finally old pest has come out of the sewer. The knight was surprised Old Wild is in Nakan region, however, and asks what he was doing at the 23rd Street, the street where the bookstore of Mr. Lin is. Claudia says that the report is limited since Jack didn't make it back to give a full report, but they know that Old Wild spent an hour in the bookstore. The knight gets angry, saying that it makes no sense for a black mage who uses words for his magic to go to a bookstore, and asks if there is any background check on the bookstore. Claudia says the bookstore is flagship of Ash Tree Merchant Group and has been open for 3 years now. It has a good reputation, but not many customers, and that the only thing about the bookstore that is a little bit odd is the owner, who is not local. The knight says that the Ash Tree Merchant Group belongs to the Jewets, who follow nature in forests, and that he doubts they have anything to do with the black mages, and because of that, the knight doubts that the bookstore is the gathering place of mages. The knight gets completely pissed then, runs towards Claudia, and asks her what is the mission of their order of knights. Claudia, in a trembling voice, responds, to eradicate evil and bring peace. The knight says that they cannot tolerate anyone who stands for evil or works with those who stand for evil, saying that Wild didn't stay in the bookstore only to chat, read a book, and drink some tea, while these are precisely the reasons why Old Wild stayed there. The knight continues yelling in anger, saying that if Claudia really thinks this, that an immensely powerful black mage stayed at a bookstore for an hour only to do that, then he will need to put on the sharp mithril boots and kick Claudia a few times so she learns her lessons. Claudia, quivering in fear, says that the Ash Tree group of merchants who own the bookstore as well fund 40% of their operation as well. The knight realizes his mistake, exhales, and says that he will go to the bookstore himself to check out what's the big deal about this bookstore. As he's leaving his base, you can see many knights in a line greeting him honorably. He looks at the record of Lin E, saying he will personally get to see what kind of being Lin is. Then we find out the name of the knight, Joseph Abraham. He was one of the 10 Radiant Knights, and the knight that beat Old Wild terribly once already. As the chapter draws to an end, Sir Joseph starts hallucinating again, seeing bright red light everywhere, and as a magic sword appears in front of him, Sir Joseph utters, "The curse of the magic sword, Candela?" We see Joseph drowning and falling deeper and deeper in water, demon tendrils wrapping around him and even an illusion of a mysterious man trying to choke him out. Joseph snaps back out of the hallucination, and he is on a rainy street close to Mr. Lin's bookstore. Joseph is talking to himself, saying that the curse of the sword Candela activated again and that's why he can't go visit the bookstore now, and the reason for the curse is a madness possessed by its original owner. This curse can drive people mad with hallucinations, and only extremely powerful knights can withstand this curse with their tremendous willpower. But the curse is activating again before Joseph could find a suitable successor for the blade. Joseph thinks to himself that he is no undefeatable sacred knight, since he can't withstand this curse anymore, he is just an old cripple. Then he leaves down the street without going to the bookstore. Now we see drained corpses of enemies who attacked the girl from the beginning of the novel and a man in robes, whose name is Helix and who is a leader of the White Wolf clan. And Helix is saying that he underestimated the girl. After all, she was second in command, so it's understandable that she is not weak. Now we see the girl again, standing in front of a burning building, and we get to learn more about her. She was a former second in command of the White Wolf clan, the clan Helix is the current leader of, and her name is Ji Zinsu. We see more enemies charging at her from behind, but she dismantles them without batting an eye, then asks Max to report on the situation. Now we can see Max on a rooftop saying that it's confirmed that Helix has become a total madman after receiving the spawn of the magic mirror, and that he has started a massacre among the hunters after taking it. Max warns G that they are outmatched since Helix has allied with Casper, who is third in command. And we see another woman named Kay approach them, saying that Helix and Casper have probably planned this assault a long time ago and that they are too powerful right now. Then she tells G that she got betrayed only because of that scheming bastard. Lee then thanks Kay, saying that the only reason she survived the pursuers was thanks to Kay. Then Lee thinks about Kay being really impressive, since she can suppress the side effects of the tainted blood, meaning even when she is transformed, she can retain complete control, which is impossible for regular hunters. Now we see a man known as Rat Ryan screaming that Helix and Casper are close to panicky levels and that after Lee and Kay transform, they can defeat them easily. Kay absolutely despises Rat Ryan, but G said that they can trust him since he has a loyalty rune marked onto his soul. G then explains that Kay and Max are able to withstand the mind corruption of the magic mirror because that rune has been cast by the white mage. That proceeds to explain that all of them have tainted blood and that hunting that cruel dream beast is a path they all chose to have. She lets out a battle cry, telling her hunters that there is no turning back now. They agree and follow her instructions. They leave, saying that this is going to be their last battle. They reach the church gate, which they break open and enter. Inside they find third in command Casper, and they get surprised, asking where is Helix and why is Casper alone. Casper laughs while G rushes towards him, suspecting that something is wrong. After flipping him over, she realizes he has started transforming and takes a syringe to inject into him to slow down his transformation. Then she asks where Helix is, and Casper, while still transforming, screams, "His Holiness will come." Then Casper explodes, ending his own line. G, completely shocked and angry, breaks the glass mirror, while Max is asking her that they should ask Mr. Keywood for help, but G quickly declines Max's offer and gives an order to Gay to continue investigating. She then orders Ryan to follow her, and shocked, he asks where, while she utters to 23rd Street. Now we see our protagonist, Mr. Lin, sitting in his bookstore, drinking coffee, and reading a book, while thinking to himself that today is another day without customers, since Old Wild and G, it's been 3 days without any customers. He then thinks to himself that he is only scraping by because of that black lady who is financing the bookstore, and Lin hopes that the book he recommended, this black lady, can be of any help to her. He then thinks that he should devise strategies how to share books better, since he is probably not getting any customers with rather being as bad as it is today. And in that moment, somebody enters the bookstore. It's Ms. G, dressed in a beautiful dress, which leaves Mr. Lin a bit surprised, but he happily welcomes her in. He then remembers that she is the daughter of a rich tycoon and that this is his chance to make his business prosper by making her his regular customer. He tells her that he didn't expect her to come back so soon and that she is the first person ever to visit his bookstore after only 3 days. G is thinking to himself that Mr. Lin is disappointed in her, and after giving her such great guidance the last time, she still came back to him asking for more help. She then notices the gargoyle that Mr. Lin received from Old Wild and thinks to herself if that's the mage's gargoyle, and even though it didn't move, she feels a powerful aura coming from him. She continues thinking about Mr. Lin trying to pretend to be a normal person, but he is displaying this gargoyle. Is he trying to comfort her and treat her with forgiveness and encouragement like before? She then apologizes to Mr. Lin for disappointing him, and in that moment, Red Trine enters the bookstore, asking G if this is the place where she is taking him. He gets surprised after seeing Mr. Lin and thinking, why did the boss take me to see a normal person? Mr. Lin asks about who this guy is, and she explains that this is her subordinate, saying that he is completely loyal. Mr. Lin then starts pouring coffee and thinks that G got traumatized by that bastard who G mentioned in Chapter 1 and for whom Mr. Lin told her to need to get revenge against. Mr. Lin thinks she was traumatized by this guy so much because when she introduces other people she needs to say they are loyal, but then Mr. Lin realizes that if she took his advice and listened to him and got revenge, she should feel more confident now. And why did she just say she disappointed Mr. Lin? He asks her if she failed doing this and offers her coffee. She thinks to herself that even though she didn't say it, Mr. Lin already knows this, so she tells him that yes, she had failed. They are talking about different people, however. G is talking about Helix and wanting to end his life, while Mr. Lin is thinking that the guy is her ex who betrayed her. G then proceeds to explain that he got away and she couldn't get her revenge. She asked others to search for him, but they couldn't find him yet. And then she fought him for 2 days, and after receiving Mr. Lin's teachings, she started pushing him back, even explaining, even destroying his base, and even though she paid a heavy price, he still managed to escape because G has underestimated him. She then apologizes to Mr. Lin because she got careless. Mr. Lin with a happy face says that it's not her fault. And while he sips his coffee, he gets completely and utterly confused, not realizing what's going on because he is thinking that the guy G is talking about is her ex. Why is she talking about romance like fighting someone? He wonders. And thinks there is a saying, love is like shopping, and shopping is like fighting. So logically, love is like fighting. Lin thinks that G is used to business terminology since her father is a girl, and that's why she is describing it like that, and he thinks he understands it now. He thinks she meant she argued with that guy for days but only understood how clever he is at the end, and he managed to run away with her money at the end. He pours more coffee for Ms. G and says that he understands. Ms. G gets a bit happy and asks Mr. Lin what he thinks, while we can see Ret Ryan in the back completely confused because he doesn't understand what the heck is going on. We went a bit in the past to learn more about Ret Ryan. He is talking on the phone with somebody whom he told that the old wild is in the knocking region now, and that person starts complimenting Ryan for getting this classified information easily. Ryan said, "Cut the flattery, I consider someone else in an instant." The person on the phone thanks Ryan again and tells him who the next target is, and Ryan says that it's just a naive brat who believes that the rune of truth is safe but that it's really easy to crack them up. And at that moment, Kay calls for Ret Ryan, telling him that G is looking for him and that he is not going to be a mindless rat anymore, but her subordinate. Ryan apologizes and says he is leaving right away. And while going, he thinks to himself that Kay has the ability to control lycanthropy easily and that if he finds a way to do this, he can be the ultimate intel to destroy hunters forever. Now lycanthropy is the ability to transform into a wolf or a werewolf, for those of you who don't know. Now back to the present, where Ryan is completely confused, not understanding why G is talking to this man in such a way, as if he possesses some kind of indescribable power but is just a normal human. G then asks Mr. Lin to guide her, and he tells her that she doesn't need to worry so much, that it's actually easier than she thinks, that her enemy isn't that guy right now but other things, and that she fears the fear itself and that she needs to wait for a bit, that good news will come. Ryan realizes that these are all lies and empty words, because Ryan knows them too well, because those are all tricks of a liar, and Ret Ryan is a liar himself. Mr. Lin then quickly apologizes and asks him to wait for a moment because his stomach started acting up since he drank too much tea, thinking he'll get no customers today. When he leaves, Ret Ryan, in a loud tone, asks G what the hell she is doing. She tells him to watch his tone, that she brought him here because he might have some useful intelligence, not because she trusts him or values him, and she calls him impudent. Ryan loses it and starts screaming that Mr. Lin is a liar, how Ryan is impudent but he knows that, but that Mr. Lin's deception definitely needs to be worked on, and how Ryan can find at least 3 people with that low level of deception. He warns G that Mr. Lin is spinning her around, and then he feels G's blade at his throat as she yells at him, saying, "I knew I shouldn't have brought you, a wicked man like you only sees wicked things." She tells him that if he wasn't useful, she'd just end his life right there and then. Ryan thinks to himself that he needs to calm down and manipulate G, since he thinks she is so easy to manipulate, and says that he's loyal to her and her only and that when Mr. Lin comes back he will prove it to her, preparing his poison arrow to strike Mr. Lin down. At that moment, the magic gargoyle that Mr. Lin got from the old wild awakens because it felt Ryan's murderous intent. It grabs Ryan, leaving G in shock, quickly pulls him close to his mouth, and devours Ryan in a blink of an eye. Then, just before Mr. Lin returns, Gargoyle goes back into its normal sleeping form, looking like a statue again. Mr. Lin comes back apologizing for leaving and asks, "Where is your subordinate, G?" G is completely terrified and petrified and answers in a shaky voice, "Something urgent." While still being frozen with fear, G starts thinking to herself how everything just now happened so quickly she didn't even realize and she didn't even have time to react. The gargoyle attacked and swallowed Red Ryan so fast that if it was targeted in G instead, she couldn't defend herself and would get completely obliterated by it without even standing a chance. Is this what it feels to stare death in the eyes? She thinks to herself as the chills caused by the biggest fear in her life are running through her body. She then thinks that Mr. Lin realized that Red Ryan is a liar and wanted to finish him off but didn't want to get his hands dirty by doing this job. That's why he left to a different room for a couple of moments, letting his gargoyle quickly dispose of that ignorant guy. She thinks that this is such a brutal but elegant tactic and thinks that she shouldn't have brought Red Ryan in the first place. She then thinks that she angered Mr. Lin, and if he thinks she's behind this, what could he even do to her? But at that moment, Mr. Lin interrupts her thoughts, asking, "What's wrong? You look pale, Mr. G." He tells her to relax and that his bookstore should be a place for people who visit and relax. "Don't be scared, I'm not going to eat you," he says. Ms. G gets even more terrified now, if that is even possible, and starts shaking and apologizing, saying her subordinate was rude and that she shouldn't have brought him with her to the bookstore. Mr. Lin gets completely confused again, not understanding why she is so nervous and scared. Does she really think I eat people? He thinks. But there is no way she'd think something like that about such a friendly book clerk like Mr. Lin. He thinks that maybe she's just too naive and believes everything people say. That's why she got betrayed by her ex as well, Mr. Lin thinks. He then realizes that he probably earned her trust with soul healing her the last time she came, and that's why she came again and is planning to do his best again to help her soul out. He apologizes for making jokes and asks Ms. G if he can help her in any way. Ms. G notices that Mr. Lin is calm, so she relaxed a bit as well, apologizing for her transgression and asking for a book to help with her willpower. Mr. Lin says no problem, and while finding a good book for her, he wonders why does she look so scared. He's only been gone a couple of minutes, what could have happened? Maybe it's because her subordinate left so suddenly. So Mr. Lin decides to comment about him, saying that Red Ryan didn't look right and it's better to not talk about stuff like absolute loyalty. She gets shocked thinking that Mr. Lin didn't say this randomly, that something must be wrong with the loyalty rune. She thinks that only white mages who make this rune can crack them, and that the mage that made the rune for Ryan works for her father Haywood, and if Ryan's rune is not working, her father is probably breaking the runes to manipulate other people. She comments out loud, saying, "How can this be? Who can I trust?" And Mr. Lin, without a moment to spare, answers by saying, "You can only rely on yourself." He tells her that she can never completely understand an individual and that the best way is to get strong and steal so nobody can defeat you and you don't have to rely on other people, and offers her a book titled How the Steel Was Tempered. G is shocked, but Lin tells her that after she reads this book, it will be really helpful to her. He then uses some quotes to encourage her and tells her to strike when the iron is hot. Man's dearest possession is life, and it's given to him to live but was. As she is leaving, he continues quoting more sentences from the book. Now she is walking down the street again and looks at the cover of the book for a moment and then opens it up. The book releases light particles all around G, startling her a bit, and then a huge demon eye appears above her. "The unending wheel of steel has a different effect on the power of the soul," is the quote she hears. G is left confused and not understanding what has just happened while she sees visions of the bookstore and the gargoyle in the bookstore. Then the vision zooms on the neck of the gargoyle where we can see people as swallowed, one of them being Retrayan, whose rune of truth was gone from his neck. She then realizes that rune was indeed cracked and broken. The demon eye above her zaps her with dark energies, she feels pain and her nose starts bleeding, but in her vision she finds herself in front of Retrayan, who is suffering. Now she is out of the vision, thinking how incredible Mr. Lin is. He changed her soul so easily and poured huge amounts of mana in her, and she finally has a chance to break through panicky level into a higher power level. She feels satisfaction overflowing through her body. She feels as if Mr. Lin gave her a second life and thinks that Mr. Lin wants to help all the hunters gradually, step by step, and she thinks she finally understands his goals. She swears an absolute loyalty to him, giving her body and everything to him and saying she will never let Mr. Lin down again. While sorting books in his bookstore, Mr. Lin turns around and sees G standing out in the rain in front of the bookstore, and he realizes she was there all this time. But why does she have a nosebleed? He wonders as she runs away. Mr. Lin then thinks that maybe she has a crush on him after being betrayed by her ex and being invulnerable, and Mr. Lin was there for her. No, that can't be the case, he thinks. I need to focus on the customers. And the chapter ends with Holy Knight Joseph standing in front of the bookstore. Now we get to see Radiant Knight Joseph in front of the bookstore having a magical aura around him to protect him from the rain at all time. Not so powerful he is. He then thinks to himself that he doesn't understand why would a powerful black mage like Old Wild decide to spend an hour in this ordinary bookstore. But Joseph says that he can't let this opportunity go to waste and decides to go in to investigate. As he is entering the bookstore, he is thinking to himself that, as a knight, it is his duty to protect law and peace. Now we see our main protagonist, Mr. Lin, just sitting in a chair in a bookstore browsing through books, and there is one book that he is holding in his hand, The Little Prince, and he thinks about how this book is a children's book, but it has so many philosophical points and it's both heartwarming and cute. He decides to read this book tonight before going to sleep, and at that moment the doorbell rings and somebody enters the bookstore. Mr. Lin gets excited that he gets a new customer, and then he thinks that Miss G is probably his lucky charm because every time she came to visit him, as soon as she left, some other customer came in. Now we see the imposing presence of Radiant Knight Joseph, and Mr. Lin also realizes quickly that this man has a threatening presence, but being a good book clerk as he is, he welcomes him and offers him his services. Radiant Knight Joseph is scanning the area with his magical eye, but he realizes that this is just an ordinary bookstore and that Mr. Lin is just an ordinary man and doesn't understand why Old Wild would spend any time here. But then Joseph sees the gargoyle and thinks to himself that this gargoyle is the only out of the ordinary in this entire bookstore. He thinks that Old Wild wouldn't just give this gargoyle to anybody, and he decides to investigate a little bit further. Then he asks Mr. Lin if he is the actual owner of the bookstore, and before replying, Mr. Lin thinks to himself that this guy seems a little bit unsociable, so he decides to use endearing and respectful language and decides to call Radiant Knight Joseph Grandpa. When Mr. Lin says "You are right, I am the owner of the bookstore, Grandpa," Radiant Knight Joseph gets surprised, shocked, and completely angry. Even though Mr. Lin was trying to be polite, Joseph took this in the wrong way and took it as an insult, thinking to himself that he should bash Mr. Lin's skull in, but he won't do it since Mr. Lin is just an ordinary man and he can't go around bashing skulls of civilians. He then asks Mr. Lin if this gargoyle is actually his, and Mr. Lin says yes, a customer gifted it to me and that's the reason why it's not on sale. Joseph thinks to himself that he would never want to buy something like this. What the hell would the Radiant Knight do with a gargoyle made by a black mage? Then Joseph asks Mr. Lin if Old Wild gifted this gargoyle to him. Mr. Lin answers yes, but thinks to himself that this man might have a grudge against Old Wild because of his threatening demeanor. Joseph is still a little bit confused and doesn't understand why would a powerful black mage give the gargoyle this powerful to an ordinary man. Joseph says to himself that first he thought this is a gathering place for black mages, but after scouting it, he knows that this is just an ordinary bookstore with an ordinary book clerk. But maybe they are using this place to exchange secret messages, is what Joseph thinks. So this place would be an exchanging point for the black mages then. Now we see Mr. Lin thinking and trying to analyze and understand what kind of man Joseph is. He thinks to himself that even though Joseph has this threatening aura around him, he must be a good man and a gentle soul because he didn't break anything after he entered in the bookstore, and if he is a gentle soul, he shouldn't have a grudge against a literary student like Old Wild. Then Mr. Lin remembers a quote from Sherlock Holmes, which goes, "If you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however unlikely, must be the truth." And he realizes, yes, and asks Joseph, "Are you a friend of Old Wild?" Joseph gets completely surprised, but he decides to use this for his advantage, saying that yes, he's known him for many, many years and that they've shed blood together in war, but that they've had a small conflict 2 years ago and he didn't hear about him since then. And while Joseph is thinking to himself that as soon as he sees Old Wild, he's going to rip his head off and break his bones, and that's basically what he already did last time they fought, but Old Wild used some unfamiliar magic to escape death and run away. So while he is thinking this, Mr. Lin is thinking that they really have a deep connection, a bromance, and an enviable friendship. And he tells Joseph that he realized they are close friends because Joseph immediately knew that gargoyle was from Old Wild. Joseph said that he's been looking for Old Wild all these years and asks Mr. Lin if he has the address of where Old Wild is right now and that he would like to pay him a visit right now personally. Mr. Lin says that he would gladly give him the address, but unfortunately that he doesn't have it. But he lets Joseph know that Old Wild borrowed the book and he will be back in couple of days to return the book, and when he comes back, Mr. Lin will tell him about Joseph trying to find him. Then he asks Joseph if he would like to sit and rest for a while, and his business instincts are kicking in and he asks him if he would like to borrow a book. Joseph sighs and says, "Do I look tired?" And he thinks to himself that even though Mr. Lin is an ordinary man talking to a super powerful man right now, he's still being really casual and friendly towards Joseph. And Joseph thinks to himself that nobody talked to him like this for many, many years, ever since he became a Radiant Knight. Then Joseph says that he isn't tired, but he has no reason to pass on a little bit of tea. But he will not read any books since he doesn't like reading and he didn't bring any money with him. Mr. Lin thinks to himself that Joseph is incredibly arrogant, judging by the tone of his voice, but that he is opening up right now. So he offers him with tea and tells him that he can read any book behind him for free. Joseph again refuses to read a book and thinks that his headache is getting worse and worse. And in that moment, Mr. Lin just slides a book to Joseph. The book's title is A Seed of the Abyss. And then also tells him that he is reading a fairy tale right now that's really relaxing and soothing for soul before going to sleep, and if Joseph wants, he can let him have this book to read to help him relax his soul. Joseph scoffs and says, "Fairy tale? Young man, you're an adult as well. Why would you read such a book? That's so immature. Mr. Lin is a little bit disappointed because of how condescending Joseph is and tells him, switch yourself, but this book is really, really good. It's the only copy in the Nakan region. Joseph gets surprised and asks Mr. Lin what? Are you certain this book is a fairy tale? Mr. Lin left a little bit confused and says, yes, this is the classical story. Are there any problems? Joseph thinks for himself that nobody in his right mind would call a book the same as A Seed of the Abyss, a fairy tale story for kids that you read before going to sleep. Now we get to learn something new and mind-blowing twist. Books that Mr. Lin has and sees, when he gives them to his customers, they see it differently and the book changes in according to what the customer's soul needs. That's why Joseph was surprised because Mr. Lin was talking about a fairy tale but the book's name was A Seed of the Abyss. But Mr. Lin saw this book as the story of Little Prince, which in reality is a children's book. Now Joseph gets intrigued, and because of this, he asks Mr. Lin to have a look at the book, but not because he is interested in it but because he is a polite person who doesn't want to decline such a polite offer from Mr. Lin, who keeps recommending him to read this book. Mr. Lin thinks to himself that his grandpa is really like a macho man on the outside, but he is really soft and has a woman's heart on the inside. And as he offers Joseph the book, and as soon as Joseph touches the book, he feels a familiar feeling of dizziness and pain. He realizes it's the sword candela resonating with something right now. Is it the book, he wonders? He is completely confused, and while falling down to the floor, he remembers Mr. Lin saying bedtime. Is this what he meant? We can see Joseph fighting to stay conscious, but he faints and falls on the floor. Mr. Lin completely shocked screams, Grandpa, are you okay? What is happening? And as he is running towards Joseph to give him first aid, he is thinking maybe he had a stroke. And after checking his pulse, he realizes that Joseph's breathing and heartbeat are completely perfect and he is just sleeping. He is a little bit confused, but he says that Joseph has a better pulse than Mr. Lin in his prime, even though Mr. Lin is young and Joseph is so old. But then Mr. Lin gets scared a little bit again, thinking, but why did he pass out? Why did he fall asleep so suddenly? Is it something to do with the book? No, it makes no sense. Why would anybody pass out after seeing the Little Prince title? However, Mr. Lin collects himself and says he is my customer right now, he passed out at the bookstore. I need to take care of him, make him more comfortable right now, and I'll ask him about it when he wakes up. Now we see Mr. Lin trying to lift Joseph up and carry him to a more comfortable place, but literally, after using all of his power, he can't move Joseph, not even an inch. After getting completely tired, he thinks how Joseph is very, very heavy and he's got muscles everywhere like a big brown bear. He thinks it would be much easier to carry Joseph if he were as thin as Old Wild. Then Mr. Lin thinks maybe another customer will come and help me carry him, but there is no way anybody will come at this time of night and in this bad weather. Then he apologizes to Joseph, saying I am sorry for doing something like this, but I can't do anything else, it's out of my power, and because he can't carry Joseph, he starts dragging him by his coat on the floor to find a more comfortable place for him. After placing him on a comfortable chair, he notices that Joseph has a mechanical arm, and he thinks maybe Joseph is a cripple like Old Wild, but then he sees how complex and intricate this mechanical arm is, and Mr. Lin thinks for himself that there is no way an ordinary old man would carry something like this on him. Then Mr. Lin thinks that Joseph is maybe a high-ranking retired military officer because of his attitude, the way he looks, the way he acts, and the way he talks because he is so muscular for an old man. Yes, that's it, Mr. Lin thinks, because he already met retired military officers in the past, and all of them have the same exact aura around them. Mr. Lin also thinks that he has to have PTSD because of his guarded attitude and that he also must see his lost arm as a glorious humanity of the battle he once fought. These kinds of elderly people are always so stubborn, no wonder he seemed so arrogant before. Then Mr. Lin thinks that maybe Joseph's mechanical arm malfunctioned, he got some kind of electrical shock from it, and that's why he fainted and fell asleep. Then Mr. Lin thinks for himself that if somebody saw what just happened between him and Joseph, they would probably think of Mr. Lin as a serial killer who just murdered somebody and took him in the back of the shop to hide the body. No, there is no way somebody would think something like that, Mr. Lin thinks. I am an outstanding citizen, and even though this scene is easy to misunderstand, there is nobody here to see. But then we see a cat peeking through the door and then runs away. Mr. Lin hears that somebody entered a store, but this was cat living, but he didn't know that, so he goes to check, and he sees an open door. After going outside to see what's going on, he sees this cat running away. He tells the cat to watch out, it's dangerous because of the weather outside. He thinks this is a regular cat. But we can see the cat actually being frightened and having actual thoughts about how this could happen. Then, after getting tired and running a little bit further away, we can see the cat actually speaking, saying the spell shape is shifting, and it starts transforming into a man. We learn that this man is a spy working for a secret instrument tower, and when we see his face, he's crying, thinking, how could this happen? Then we get to learn more about this man, and we realize he is Joseph's biggest fan, and he studied and worked very hard to join his order as a spy, and because he studied so much, of course he knows everything about Radiant Knights, their battles with enemies, and the battle between Joseph and the Old Wild as well. After learning that Joseph is going to the bookstore to find out why Old Wild was there, this man decided to shapeshift into a cat and follow him to protect him if he needs assistance. But after realizing this is just an ordinary bookstore, he waited outside to get an autograph from Joseph after he's done. But because Joseph took so long, he peeked in to see what's going on and what was taking Joseph so long, and when he peeked, it was at the exact moment that Joseph started fainting. Then the cat started thinking how powerful Mr. Lin is because he could overpower and beat Joseph so easily. After going back to see why he dragged him back, he saw when Mr. Lin told Joseph even a veteran like you deserves to have some sleep dreams. The cat misunderstood the situation and felt an ominous aura coming from Mr. Lin, thinking he was casting some black evil spell on Joseph while Joseph was sleeping. Then the cat gets scared and realizes that if Mr. Lin is so powerful that he could defeat Joseph, he's probably going to finish the cat as well. He gets so scared and starts running away, saying I have to get out of here as quickly as I can. I'm so scared, sounding as if he is about to poop his pants. Now we see the man shaking and quivering in fear outside in the rain, thinking, wow, this is how it feels to look death in the eyes, and he thinks that if Mr. Lin wanted, he could have finished him off, but for some reason he let him go. Why, he wonders. Does he want me to go back and report? We get to learn the name of this man, whose name is Morrison Gregg, and he decides that he has no other choice but to go back and report this current situation. Then we see Mr. Joseph waking up and finding himself in the deep water again. What? Where am I? He thinks, oh, another curse of Candela, another illusion, he thinks, but why don't I feel pain now? He then hears a voice. When you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you and recognizes one of its own. The voice was coming from the book, and the words from the book were overflowing Joseph's mind. Stop, stop, it's too much. He yells, then he hears another voice that says I'm happy to finally meet you. Joseph starts to feel pain fading away, and he realizes that the curse of Candela is finally lifted. When he looks towards the illusion of Candela, he sees a beautiful blonde-haired knight, the first owner of the sword, and the curse is now gone. This is that kind of fairy tale? Joseph tells in his sleep, and as he wakes up and snaps back to reality, he yells, fairy tales are definitely for kids. While Joseph is still a little bit confused, and while waking up, we see Mr. Lin turning around and saying, oh Grandpa, you're finally awake, and instead of getting completely angry like he usually would, Joseph puts on a slight smile, looks at Mr. Lin, and says, thank you. This concludes the latest chapter, and we will be continuing it from here in the next episode.